The Galactic Council chamber floated silently in space, a colossal structure carved from black crystal, and orbiting a dying star that pulsed red light through the windows like a slow heartbeat. Inside, hundreds of delegates from across the galaxy, scaled, feathered, furred, and even gas-based, sat in a perfect circular formation. In the center stood Earth's representative, Ambassador Lyra Voss, her sharp suit in contrast to the flowing robes and strange armor worn by the others. Her face was calm, eyes focused, while her hands were folded behind her back, not from fear but control. The Council, the supposed peacekeepers of the galaxy, had gathered to vote on Resolution Theta, a set of strict laws targeting Earth. On paper, the resolution spoke of controlling dangerous growth, protecting smaller civilizations, and maintaining galactic stability. But everyone in the room knew the truth. The other species feared humanity. Earth had grown too fast. In less than a century, humans had gone from barely reaching Mars to establishing deep colonies beyond the outer reaches, stabilizing trade routes, taming pirate sectors, and even creating peace between warring alien clans. And they hadn't done it through brute force, as many had expected. No. They didn't just adapt, they dominated quietly, methodically. That scared the older species. The Varnari, the Threx, even the mighty J-Karan Empire, all of them had once ruled parts of the galaxy through tradition and legacy. But Earth had none of that. What it had was momentum. And momentum, when not in the Council's control, was dangerous. Lyra watched silently as each delegate placed their vote. There was no surprise. She had already predicted the outcome before the meeting even began. Resolution Theta passed by an overwhelming margin. Effective immediately, Earth would be banned from establishing new colonies. Its advanced AI programs would be forced offline. Its military movements would be restricted to defensive positions approved by the Council. And most insulting of all, any technology discovered by humans in unexplored sectors would need to be handed over to the Council for safe analysis. The vote concluded, and silence fell. The Council expected resistance, protest, maybe even a desperate plea. But Lyra did none of that. She simply stepped forward into the center of the chamber, her voice calm but firm, loud enough to echo without artificial amplification. "Let the record show," she said, her eyes scanning the faces of every species present, "that humanity does not accept this decision. We joined this council in good faith. We offered aid, trade, protection, and stability. And in return, you offer chains." A murmur swept the chamber, but she didn't pause. "You fear what you do not control. So be it. From this moment forward, Earth withdraws from the Galactic Council. Effective immediately, all cooperation ends. We will no longer share our technology. We will no longer patrol your borders." Humanity walks out. With that, she turned, walked past the speechless guards, and exited the chamber. The doors shut behind her with a finality that echoed louder than any war cry. Inside the chamber, silence remained. The Varnari delegate, a being of silver scales and slow speech, finally broke it. "They'll come back," it said, waving a clawed hand. "They always do. They are emotional creatures. Unstable. They'll see reason in time." Laughter followed from a few corners of the room. But not everyone was smiling. The Threx ambassador, a crystalline being who calculated probabilities faster than most supercomputers, was already running numbers. Its internal projections showed sudden spikes in pirate activity, potential economic disruptions, and trade sectors that relied almost entirely on human AI logistics. Quietly, it requested a re-evaluation of planetary risk zones, something it had never needed to do before. Meanwhile, smaller nations who had enjoyed human protection began whispering among themselves. Some feared isolation. Others wondered if they should have voted differently, but it was too late. Earth had left. Back on her ship, Lyra Voss sat alone, staring out at the stars. Her face showed no regret. She sent a single encrypted message back to Earth. "It is done. Prepare Phase 2. Then she leaned back, closed her eyes, and whispered to herself, "Let them see the world without us." In that moment, far across the galaxy, the first ripple began. On the mining moon of Telvaris, a pirate fleet attacked a convoy that had once been under human protection. The Council sent aid, but it arrived too late. Thousands were dead. The pirate groups, once quiet under human watch, had learned that the galaxy was now unguarded. On the diplomatic colony of Aridus Prime, two longtime enemy races reignited an ancient war. Earth had once brokered their peace treaty. With no one to enforce it, violence resumed within hours of Earth's departure. At the edge of the Outer Rim, near the Shadow Zone, a research station detected strange movement signals not seen since the Old War, signals that had once terrified even the bravest species. But the Council ignored the warning, too busy celebrating their victory over humanity. The galaxy did not notice it yet, but a storm had begun. One by one, systems would begin to fall out of alignment. Trade would slow. Alliances would crumble. Old enemies would return. And somewhere, deep in the uncharted regions of space, humanity was moving. Not with rage, not with revenge, but with purpose. Earth had not walked away in anger. It had walked away in patience. And patience, combined with power, was far more dangerous than any open threat. The Council had chosen to weaken its strongest pillar. Now the structure would shake. And as the galaxy moved forward, unaware of what was coming, Lyra Voss watched, knowing exactly how it would unfold one choice at a time. In the weeks that followed humanity's silent departure from the Galactic Council, the galaxy held its breath, though few would admit it. On the surface, the Council continued with business as usual, passing laws, issuing patrol commands, attending diplomatic summits, but beneath the polished rituals, cracks began to form. The Council members reassured themselves with words like temporary, symbolic, and emotion-driven, believing humanity would soon return once they realized the loss of Council resources, funding, and influence. Yet, something felt off. The humans were not behaving as expected. They did not protest. They did not threaten. They simply vanished. No messages. No diplomats. No shared intelligence. Trade ships from Earth stopped arriving at Council stations. The patrol fleets once maintained by Earth across unstable sectors disappeared overnight. Human-operated AI systems that had quietly managed trade hubs, defense grids, and communication relays across dozens of planets shut down without warning, leaving chaos in their place. The Council had grown so used to these systems that they had forgotten who maintained them. Without human oversight, delays turned into crashes, and minor disruptions became full breakdowns. On the remote world of Velikar, where human engineers had upgraded a planetary shield system decades ago, the defense grid failed during a solar flare. Entire cities were lost in moments. When a Council investigation team arrived, they found logs showing the shield software had been Earth-coded. No species could interpret the code, let alone repair it. Across the stars, minor pirate factions, once hunted into near extinction by coordinated human fleets, began to rise again. Their leaders had hidden in the shadows for years, watching Earth's dominance, waiting for a moment of weakness. And now, with Earth gone, they struck back. Merchant convoys went missing. Entire space lanes fell into silence. Council forces tried to respond, but they were scattered, uncoordinated, and unfamiliar with the guerrilla tactics these pirates used. For so long, the Council had relied on Earth's rapid response units that they had forgotten how to protect themselves. On Outpost K9, a trade station near the Drift Belt, Captain Rovan of the Elix Guard watched helplessly as a dozen pirate ships tore through a civilian convoy. His request for backup was denied. The nearest Council ship was 3 days away. Earth's old destroyers, once stationed there under mutual treaty, had been withdrawn. There was nothing he could do but watch the slaughter. And in that cold silence, he realized the truth. The Council had not just lost a member. They had lost their shield. At the Council core, rumors began to spread among staff and junior delegates. Whispers spoke of secret alliances Earth may have formed during its years of expansion, small independent systems, colonies not under Council control, even rogue species that once waged war on the Council, now silent. Some speculated Earth had not walked away to sulk, but to prepare. Prepare for what? asked Ambassador Luron of the Threx when the matter was raised. But no, one had an answer. Lyra Voss had made no threats. Earth had fired no weapons. Yet the galaxy was already shaking. Old enemies of the Council, long quiet due to Earth's presence, began to resurface. The Iracnol, a hive species exiled to the edges of the void centuries ago, launched a sudden and brutal attack on a Council observatory near the Cinder Ring. Their swarm ships had not been seen in decades. The Council scrambled to respond, but again, their delay cost lives. Earth had once monitored that sector. With their sensors offline, the warning came too late. Survivors reported that the hive had adapted, improved, and worse, they seemed to know Earth was gone. It was almost as if they'd been waiting. Meanwhile, human space remained quiet. Too quiet. Probes sent to monitor Earth's colonies returned no useful data. Human encryption had advanced in secret. Their fleets, once visible along known borders, had gone dark. The humans had not only disappeared, they had vanished with purpose. They were hiding something. And yet, the Council could not openly admit concern. Doing so would be seen as weakness. Instead, they held more meetings. They wrote more laws. But deep down, in the minds of even the proudest delegates, a single question lingered. What were the humans doing? Some Council species tried to reach out in secret. Messages were sent through neutral channels. No responses came back. Earth remained silent, and that silence was louder than any declaration of war. On the planet, Thalan's Reach, where Earth had once helped build the largest neutral medical center in the galaxy, supplies began to run low. The Council promised aid, but their supply chains were collapsing. Human ships had always run that route fast, efficient, reliable. Now, without them, people began to die. Doctors who had trained under human programs wrote desperate pleas to the Council, begging for help. The Council promised assistance. Few believed them. Earth's absence was no longer a political move, it was changing lives across the galaxy. Inside human space, beyond the old borderlines, activity stirred. Massive orbital shipyards, long kept hidden from Council scanners, lit up with new energy. Old warships were refitted. Civilian vessels were repurposed. An entire generation of humans who had grown up in the shadow of peace were now being trained not in diplomacy, but in strategy. And still, not a word left Earth's channels. No threats. No broadcasts. Only silence. That silence became a weapon. The Council began to argue among themselves. Accusations flew: who had pushed the resolution? Who had ignored the warnings? Who would lead now that Earth was gone? The Varnari blamed the Elix. The Threx accused the J-Karan of sabotage. Divisions deepened. Alliances began to shift. Where once humanity had played the role of neutral stabilizer, now there was no one to mediate. What had once been whispers of tension grew into open hostility. And as the Council trembled under its own weight, a single message appeared, brief, encrypted, and impossible to trace. It reached the Council's central relay and displayed for only 10 seconds before deleting itself. It read, "You chose exclusion. Now you must face exposure." No name. No signature. Just the cold echo of a voice that felt unmistakably human. Panic gripped some members. Others dismissed it as a trick. But deep down, everyone knew what it meant. The humans had not abandoned the galaxy. They were watching, waiting, preparing. The planet Varellus Prime had always been a jewel in the outer territories, rich in resources, strategically located between major trade routes and protected by both Council treaties and human-built defense satellites that once formed an invisible shield across its orbit. The skies were always busy with merchant ships, diplomats, and military transports, while the cities below buzzed with interspecies life. Virellus was a symbol of progress, of cooperation between the Council and human engineering. But after Earth's departure, no one had bothered to check how dependent the planet was on human systems until the day everything stopped. Without warning, the orbital sensors failed. The satellites that tracked every approach to the planet blinked offline within seconds of each other. Traffic control towers lost contact with 3 incoming cargo ships, and then only static filled their screens. Council officials blamed it on a solar flare, but the truth was more dangerous. As night fell over the city of Delvorn, the capital of Varellus Prime, a strange silence settled over the planet. Citizens noticed lights flickering in their buildings. Power grids began to surge and fail. Defense platforms failed to respond. And then came the sounds low, distant hums growing louder by the second, not from space, but from inside the atmosphere. No one knew who they were or how they got through the orbital defenses, but the attackers struck with terrifying precision. Stealth ships, black and silent, descended through the clouds like shadows made solid. They didn't broadcast warnings or issue demands. They didn't communicate at all. They moved through the cities with surgical force, targeting energy cores, command centers, and transport hubs. Council security forces scrambled, but their systems were still resetting after the sensor blackout. Within 1 hour, communications across Varellus collapsed. By the time reinforcements were dispatched from the nearest Council fleet, which was already 2 sectors away, the entire planet had gone dark. No distress signals. No emergency flares. Just silence. The Council feared the worst. Some believed it was a terrorist attack. Others whispered of pirates with new weapons. But a single leaked message, intercepted from the last known Varellian command bunker, changed everything. It came from General Keys Varn, a hardened military leader not known for exaggeration. His voice was calm but strained, and in the background, alarms screamed. They moved like shadows. Silent. Precise. Not pirates. Something worse. They knew our systems. They shut everything down before we could respond. Whoever they are, they came prepared. The message ended in static. When the Council met in emergency session, the chamber was quieter than usual. No laughter. No mockery. Delegates sat stiffly, processing the implications. A planet like Varellus did not fall easily. Someone had known its systems, its weaknesses. And only one former member of the Council had ever helped design those defenses. The word humans was not spoken immediately. No one wanted to be the first to admit the thought, but it hung in the air like smoke after a fire. Finally, the Threx ambassador broke the silence, suggesting a direct investigation into the possibility of Earth's involvement. The Varnari delegate reacted with anger, accusing the Threx of trying to provoke conflict. The J. Quran called for calm, but even their voice shook. The problem wasn't just the attack, it was how perfectly executed it had been. The ships left no trace. The data systems had been wiped clean. Even the black box beacons installed in every major facility had been remotely disabled before the strike. It was as if the attackers had written the manual on how to dismantle Varellus. And that fact was what truly terrified them. Earth responded for the first time since the walkout, not with diplomacy, but with a statement broadcast to every major Council relay station. It was short, simple, and cold. The Council wished to exclude us. Now you must learn to stand without us. There was no threat in the message, but it hit like a weapon. The implication was clear. Earth was not coming to help. Not anymore. And worse, it might have had a hand in the chaos now unfolding. The message sparked panic in the outer colonies. Smaller nations that had once depended on Earth for support and trade began closing their borders. Refugees from Varellus started arriving on nearby planets, telling stories of unseen enemies, disappearing citizens, and lights in the sky that moved like ghosts. Children spoke of metal birds without wings. Scientists discovered a strange residue in the soil, not from weapons, but from advanced fusion engines no Council ship currently used. The pieces didn't fit any known fleet except Earth's. But this was not the Earth the Council had once known. This was a different force, silent, invisible, and methodical. It didn't march with banners or issue ultimatums. It moved like a storm that chose where and when to strike, and no one knew its next target. The Council began to fracture under the weight of uncertainty. Old grudges between species resurfaced. The Varnari blamed the Threx for pushing the vote that drove Earth away. The Elix accused the J. Quran of blocking peace talks with human delegates before the walkout. Diplomats stopped trusting each other. Secrets multiplied. Fear spread. Yet even in this chaos, some voices whispered a deeper fear, not just that Earth was retaliating, but that it had moved beyond retaliation. That humans had evolved their strategies in the shadows, building a network of influence, control, and technology that now operated completely outside the Council's understanding. What if the attack on Varellus was not an act of war, but a demonstration? Some began to speculate that the Council hadn't forced Earth out, it had freed Earth from all restrictions. Without oversight, humans were no longer bound by treaties, by politics, or by shared intelligence. They were no longer required to share their discoveries, their technology, or their intentions. The thought that Earth had been holding back during its time in the Council sent a chill through even the boldest ambassadors. And worse, no one knew what Earth wanted now. They hadn't demanded territory. They hadn't asked for tribute. They hadn't even spoken beyond that single message. It was a silence full of power. And it forced every council member to confront a terrible truth: they had never really understood the humans at all. Back on Earth, hidden within the command station known only as Bastion Deep, Lyra Voss stood before a massive galactic map. Red markers showed zones where human influence had once existed, now dark. Blue markers tracked pirate activity. Yellow signals showed known council fleet movements. But a growing number of silent green dots appeared where no signal should be. Places where human presence was never declared, yet clearly now existed. Around her, senior strategists moved like shadows, issuing quiet orders, monitoring dozens of channels. Earth wasn't preparing for war. It was watching, calculating, and responding to every action taken since the day they walked out. Lyra didn't speak much. She only raised one eyebrow as the latest report came in. A single word: Varellus secured. She nodded once, then turned to the others. "The galaxy wanted to see what we are without chains," she said. "Now they will." And far beyond Earth, among the stars, the Council realized they had not just lost a planet. They had lost their advantage, their shield, their control. The breach at Varellus was not the beginning of war, it was the proof that something much bigger had already begun. The fall of Varellus was more than a military loss. It was a warning, loud and clear, that no Council world was safe anymore, not even the ones they thought untouchable. Behind closed doors, panic began to spread faster than any enemy fleet. The illusion of unity within the Galactic Council cracked like thin ice under pressure. Some delegates demanded retaliation against Earth, but none could agree on how. Others pleaded for secret negotiations, but Earth wasn't responding to messages, not even those encrypted with codes known only to the highest-ranking allies from before the walkout. The humans had vanished into the void, but somehow their presence was everywhere, felt, feared, and unseen. Ships refused to travel into human space. Merchant routes were abandoned. Defense budgets tripled overnight, and border planets began building their own fleets, refusing to wait for Council protection that now seemed like an empty promise. Rumors grew wild. Whispers of silent Earth ships spotted near moons. Unconfirmed reports of human agents seen advising rebellious colonies. Some even claimed Earth had formed its own secret alliance, gathering species that had once suffered under the Council's control. And in the middle of all this fear, one word began appearing in intercepted chatter and confidential reports: collapse protocol. No one knew what it meant, not at first, but the phrase kept showing up, tied to events where systems broke down, military forces failed, and order dissolved. It wasn't a declaration of war. It was a slow unraveling, like threads being pulled from the edge of a vast tapestry, one by one. The collapse protocol wasn't a single strike. It was a chain reaction. First came the failures in communication arrays near Sector 19, where human-built relay stations once carried over 40% of interstellar messages. They stopped functioning without explanation. Council engineers tried to restart them, but found their cores had been rewritten using human code they couldn't crack. The second wave hit the galactic banking system. Human cryptographers had once helped design secure transfer channels that held trillions of credits across thousands of accounts. When those systems suddenly went dark, economic panic surged. Trade stopped. Loans defaulted. Smaller planets went bankrupt in days. One by one, stability vanished, and the Council realized they were standing on a foundation built largely by human hands. Now those hands had let go. But it wasn't random. Every failure felt precise, as if someone had mapped the entire structure of the Council and knew exactly where to strike, not with missiles or weapons, but with silence, sabotage, and absence. Civil unrest broke out on several core planets. Refugees from border worlds demanded answers. Riots burned across the domed cities of Arvalis Prime. Local governors declared independence. The Council's voice no longer mattered. People had stopped listening. Inside the Council headquarters, the atmosphere was tense and bitter. Allies accused each other of sabotage, betrayal, and incompetence. The Threx withdrew their patrol fleets without warning. The Varnari closed their jump gates and sealed their borders. Delegates walked out of meetings. In the chamber where unity once stood, now only blame echoed. But the most frightening truth of all was that no one knew where the humans were. Their ships were never seen twice. Their signals were impossible to trace. Their systems, once deeply connected to the Council's infrastructure, had been stripped away, leaving only confusion. It became clear Earth had not left unprepared. They had spent decades embedding themselves into every system, every protocol, every defense. Now they were pulling the pieces apart like clockwork. And then came the final signal, the one that broke the last illusion of safety. It appeared on every major screen, from council chambers to outpost terminals, written in Earth standard script. This is not war. This is correction. No explanation. No threats. Just those 6 words. They hit harder than any attack. Correction for what? For arrogance? For betrayal? For centuries of control disguised as cooperation? The panic grew louder. Secret meetings were held. Emergency powers were granted. Old weapons, banned by Council law, were pulled from deep storage. A joint fleet was assembled, 37 ships from 12 species, sent to secure the rim sectors and investigate Earth's movements. They never arrived. Their last message was a distress call. No coordinates, only static, and a strange mechanical echo that repeated one word: observe. After that, silence. It was clear the Council was no longer in control. Some suggested surrender. Others wanted to beg Earth for peace. But no one knew how. The humans were ghosts, shadows in the systems, unseen eyes watching every move. And then someone uncovered the truth. Deep within the archives, in a classified file long buried by bureaucracy, a document surfaced. It was written 10 years before Earth walked out, signed by several top Council strategists. The file was titled Protocol E-27, Containment of Human Influence. It outlined a plan to slowly isolate Earth, reduce their funding, restrict their technological development, limit their expansion. The goal was clear: weaken humanity before they became too powerful. The plan had succeeded until Earth found out. The betrayal had not been recent. It had been slow, quiet, and systematic. Earth had played along. They had waited, watched, and learned. And when the moment came, they left not in anger, but with cold, deliberate intent. Now they were enacting their own protocol: collapse. Not with open violence, but with silent, surgical precision. Earth was not interested in negotiation. They weren't seeking revenge. They were correcting the balance. And the galaxy, for the first time in centuries, was beginning to understand just how much power Earth had hidden behind diplomacy, behind patience, behind silence. On the edge of known space, in a system long forgotten, a small research station blinked a new signal: a human ship had arrived. Not a warship. A diplomatic vessel. It carried a message, sealed and marked with the old emblem of the Council. When decoded, it read, "Rebuilding requires failure. Yours is complete." The Council was falling, not from an attack, but from within, from the systems they had relied on without understanding, from the allies they had taken for granted, from the hands they had tried to bind, only to find those hands now held the strings of everything. And as the stars flickered silently beyond the dying networks of the once great Council, One truth could no longer be ignored. Earth had never needed the Council. But the Council had always needed Earth. The galaxy had grown quiet, not the quiet of peace, but the heavy stillness that comes before something final. Across broken networks and failing starports, the remnants of the Galactic Council stood like ruins in the mind of the people. Once symbols of strength and unity, their chambers now echoed with silence, their once proud fleets scattered, their worlds in chaos. The Council had ruled through laws, promises, and control, but now they were ghosts among stars that no longer trusted them. What terrified them most wasn't an enemy they could see. It was the truth that Earth hadn't destroyed them with weapons or invasions, but with understanding. The humans had learned the system better than anyone, had built it from within, and when betrayed, they didn't respond with open war. They simply stepped back and everything fell. But now, after so much silence, the humans had returned, not with fleets, but with a signal. It appeared on every major relay still functioning, across planets, moons, and even isolated outposts. The voice was calm, human, and without emotion. "This is Earth Command," it said. "We offer no demands. We present only a choice." The message repeated every hour. Some worlds ignored it, others feared it. But for the surviving Council delegates, the words felt like judgment. They gathered in a hidden base on Zareth Station, deep in neutral space, to discuss what little power they had left. They argued, as they always had, but there was no more illusion of leadership, only fear and desperation. The Elix delegate, once a proud defender of diplomacy, now shook while speaking. The Varnari ambassador, who had once shouted over others, now whispered in shame. They all knew that Earth was watching them, waiting. And that message, no demands, only a choice, haunted them more than any threat. What choice? Surrender? Submission? Or something else? None dared to guess, but everyone knew the moment was coming. Then, without warning, a human ship entered orbit above Zareth Station. It was unlike any vessel the Council had seen before, sleek, silent, almost organic in its movements, surrounded by a strange blue shimmer that blocked all scans. The Council scrambled to prepare defenses, but Earth had already disabled their systems remotely. Doors refused to close. Security drones shut down mid-flight. Gravity flickered for a moment, just enough to remind them who held control. The human envoy entered the chamber alone, no guards, no weapons visible, only a figure dressed in dark gray uniform with no rank, no symbol, only calm eyes that seemed to see through every lie. Her name was Commander Ray Solon, a name known to a few historians as one of the original architects of Earth's exit from the Council. She did not sit. She did not bow. She simply stood in the center of the chamber as the lights dimmed slightly around her. The delegates rose in fear, some with anger, others with guilt. But Ray's voice was steady. "We are not here for revenge," she began. "We are here because the galaxy is at a crossroads. Your system has collapsed not because of war, but because of design flaws you refuse to fix. We were part of that design, and when you tried to remove us like a broken piece, the structure failed. Now, you must decide what to build next." The room stayed silent, no one daring to interrupt. Ray continued, "We are offering a new foundation, one not built on fear, on control, or on political games. It will not be ruled by the old Council. It will not be built by the same hands that led the galaxy to the edge of ruin. It will be something new, and you may choose to join it or be left behind." It was not an offer. It was not even a negotiation. It was the final moment the Council had left to make a choice that would decide the shape of the future. Some delegates begged for forgiveness, others pleaded for time. But Ray remained still. "There is no time," she said. "The galaxy moves with or without you." Then she raised a small device and activated it. A projection lit the room, showing dozens of systems once quiet, now active again under Earth's guidance. Trade was restarting. Power grids were restored. Defense systems rebuilt. But they were not under Council control. They were under something called the Coalition of Free Systems, a new alliance formed by Earth and joined voluntarily by those who had long been ignored, oppressed, or left behind by the Council. Some of the names shocked the delegates' entire species, once considered minor, now rising fast with Earth's help. New leaders, new voices, new systems. Rhea gave them one last look, then spoke the final words that would be remembered for generations. You cannot lead what you do not serve. You cannot unite what you divide. If you wish to remain in the old world, it will crumble around you. But if you wish to help shape the next one, then come. But do not come in power. Come in humility. With that, she turned and left, leaving behind a room full of people who had once believed themselves rulers of the stars. Now they were nothing more than watchers of their own decline. Some of them followed. Others refused. But history had already turned. In the months that followed, the coalition of free systems grew rapidly, powered by Earth's silent networks and unseen knowledge. Planets once poor began to thrive. Cultures once voiceless began to lead. Earth had not only risen, they had lifted others with them. Not as rulers, but as quiet architects of something better. And for those who refused to choose, who clung to the ashes of the Council, they were left behind, forgotten by time, uninvited to the future. The reckoning had come, not as a war, but as a mirror. And the choice had been simple, not between peace and destruction, but between pride and progress. The galaxy would remember the fall of the Council not as the end of an empire, but as the beginning of a new order. And at its center stood the species once overlooked, once doubted, now undeniable. Humanity had walked out, but they had walked forward, and the stars had followed.